Okay, lockdown diaries day 43. We're going to talk to Kona McPhee. Is that pronounced it right, Kona?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right.
And we're going to talk about travelling in Scotland because I think it's very clear to say that domestic tourism is going to be the thing of 2021, maybe even 2022. And there's a lot of people wanting to or thinking of going up to Scotland. So we're going to talk to Kona, who's set up a website that's going to aid people travelling around Scotland. So, Kona, tell what is the website and what's its aim?
So the website, it's actually a set of 4 new touring routes in Scotland. It's called the Crieff Cloverleaf. And the reason it's called that is that all these routes are centred on a town called Crieff, which is in Perthshire, right in the middle of Scotland. It's right on the Highland boundary between the Lowlands and the Highlands. And the idea is that, unlike sort of typical touring route where you set off and you stay in a different place each night, you basically start in Crieff. Each route starts and ends in Crieff. And what that means is that you don't have to pack up the bike every day. And, speaking as somebody who takes a good hour or 2 hours to pack up my tent every morning and get it back on the bike, it's fantastic not to have to do that. So yes, the basic idea is it's 4 routes centered on Crieff in each of the 4 different compass directions, so north, south, east, and west. And each one brings you back to the same town so that you can book one block of accommodation, stay there for 5 nights, and see an enormous amount of Scotland in the course of those 4 days.
And how have you gone about designating those 4 routes and what sort of mileage were you looking at when you
So
booked?
it's aimed at people who like touring. So really, it's for people who want to do all-day rides. So each route is about 6 hours. The mileage varies from about 180 to about 240, depending on the sort of how fast the roads are. But yeah, so each route will take you 6 hours, and each one is set out in 4 different legs so that you get a morning coffee break, an afternoon coffee break, and a spot to stop for lunch. So it's a long day on the bike, but spaced out nicely, so none of the legs are longer than 2 hours, so you get a nice breather.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, I always say 200 miles a day is enough or is about right for getting that mix of riding and time to stop and have a coffee and stop and have a chat. So I think that if you were off on the road by sort of 9 a.m., you would be back, say 5ish. Would you? Is that what you?
Yeah, easily, and that gives you plenty of time to have a nice break for lunch and everything. And obviously, I know that not everybody wants to do such long days, so I've also done a thing called the Little Leaf, which is a series of 3-hour routes, all of them still centered on Crieff, but you could come and do, just have a short day, or if you were just up for the weekend, you might think, okay, I'll do all 4 of those rather than doing the longer ones, which won't fit.
Okay. And how have you designated your routes? Have you looked at it from what's the scenic points of interest, or have you looked at it from a rider's point of view and just looked for the twisty, interesting roads? What's been the criteria for selecting a route?
So the nice thing is both. I mean, basically, I'm in the extremely lucky position of living in Crieff and being a biker. So I do a lot of single day rides, in the course of breaks in my work routine. So, these are roads that I know and love. We have some fantastic motorcycling roads here, as well as the amazing scenery. So what the goal was to go through amazing scenery, to put in some of the roads that are absolute favorite roads with the bikers here because they're fantastic to ride, and to have a real variety as well. So I didn't want to just do the most obvious routes. So I've put in little roads that you wouldn't know about necessarily if you weren't a local biker, which are fantastic. There's a lot of single track and sort of secret spots that you wouldn't hear about unless you spoke to a local, which really make it, I think, an amazing experience.
Yeah, a bit of local knowledge always, I think, helps.
Yeah, exactly.
And I suppose in terms of bike, people will say, well, what bike is it most suitable for? I'm guessing you're going to say any bike.
You could certainly do it on any bike. I mean, I do these routes on a sport tourer a lot of the time with standard road tires. So it's certainly not there's no gravel, although some of the roads have a little bit of gravel on them if they're small farm roads, but certainly there's no off-road in it. You could do it on a sports bike if you wanted to, although it's a long day on a sports bike. I think generally, if your ideal day out would be to go around the Nürburgring 20 times at top speed, you won't enjoy this so much because a lot of the roads are quite small roads. There are stretches of road which is really, it's a 20-mile-an-hour road, as well as having this sort of the faster, more progressive A roads. So it's a real mixture. There's something for everybody. So I'm hoping that even if A road riding isn't your favorite thing, or funny little single track isn't your favorite thing, there's enough variety in there mixed in each of the routes that everybody gets something that they're really going to enjoy.
I think it's interesting also just from a business point of view. And I think looking at your website, I think I'm right in saying this. You've offered all the routes up, so you can anyone without any paying anything can go on the website, download the routes on a GPX. So in a sense, there's no charge, there's no entry fee to this.
None at all. No, you can come and download. Yeah, download the GPX. And part of the point of the project is, I mean, I'm very lucky to live here in Crieff, and one of the great things about the town is we're really spoilt for food. You know, we're not a huge town, but we have really nice restaurants. It's a lovely place to stay, and obviously the COVID situation has been quite bad for a town that relies a lot on tourism. So part of my self-interested agenda is to bring people here to help support those wonderful restaurants, because I want them to keep going. And obviously some of it is just sheer enthusiasm for the routes. I mean, you know, last year it was a tough year for all of us. And in the course of planning out the routes I was going to do, you know, I would jump on my bike once we were allowed out and go and ride them. And, you know, I came, every time I did that, I would come back at the end of the day with just the biggest smile on my face and say to my husband, gosh, this is the best idea I've ever had in my life, because they're fantastic. They're just so exhilarating and beautiful. And, you know, I'm avoiding cities almost entirely. So it is very much, it's rural riding. I mean, Scotland is such a fantastic country for motorcycling. I used to live down in Cambridge, and, you know, if I lived there, I mean, the thought of going out for a ride on the A14, I mean, it's just like, why would you really? Whereas, you know, we're spoilt for wonderful, really not busy roads. I mean, one of the things I'm emphasizing is that if you're coming, come and do the routes on a Monday through a Thursday, because actually they're the best days, because, you know, in this part of Scotland, that's when there's the least traffic, and you can be on these amazing roads with almost nobody else there. And it's just fabulous.
And plenty of places to stay in Crieff.
Yeah, plenty of places to stay in Crieff. And also because, you know, it's not an isolated town, there are plenty of other places around Crieff as well. You know, if there was a capacity problem, you can go a little bit further afield and still, you know, you could go 10 miles from Crieff and still come to town and head out on each of the routes. So I think it's, you know, we're well placed for that. There's big cities not too far away. You know, we're not far from Perth. We're not far from Stirling. We're only just over an hour from Edinburgh and Glasgow. So Crieff is not a remote location by any means.
No, I suppose in location-wise, it's sort of the top of the triangle between Edinburgh and...
Yeah.
It formed a triangle, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Stirling, and then it's just north of Stirling. Is that right?
Yeah, we're a bit sort of north and a bit east of Stirling and west of Perth. And I mean, you just could not imagine a better place for motorcycle touring, really, when you look at the different directions and what you get. It's fabulous.
No, my parents live in Conwy, just down the road.
So yeah, that's 7 miles down.
The roads pretty well.
No, well, yeah, well, exactly. I mean, you know, we are a biking destination already. So I thought, well, you know, people are coming here, so let's get them to come and stay.
No, I think it's a fantastic project that you've looked at the way that which you can bring new riders or new visitors to your area. So I think the fact that you are offering a commercial service in the sense that if somebody came to you and said, could you book the accommodation and sort you out a package, I believe that's something.
Yeah, so
you're not putting a barrier of entry price-wise to find.
Not at all. I mean, I really want people to come. I mean, basically, I think my goal is to live in the UK's ultimate motorcycling travel destination, and you know, I can't be bothered to move house, so you know, this is the way to do it.
I guess the obvious thing people think of in Scotland, especially now, is the NC 500. So if somebody's got 4 or 5 days in Scotland, why would they do the Crieff Cloverleaf as opposed to the NC 500? What would the pros and cons be?
Well, I think the lovely thing is if you were coming for a week or so, you could actually do both. You know, you could stay in Crieff and then you could head up and do the NC 500. And if you do those two, goodness, you cover a lot of Scotland. You know, you've been, if you look on the map, you've covered almost all of it in, you know, at least in part riding through. So I think there are certainly stretches of the Cloverleaf that are not dissimilar in terms of riding conditions with single track and things like that. I mean, the North Coast 500 is stunning. It is absolutely stunning, but it does have a lot of camper van and caravan traffic, which obviously, as you'll know, as a biker, can be a bit frustrating. So I think
in trouble for
I think picking your time of year to do that is important to avoid the heaviest sort of camper van traffic. Like, you know, May or September, it can be just stunning. I've done it in September, and it was like a fabulous experience. So I think certainly, you know, I wouldn't say, oh, don't do it. Do that, but come and do this too, because it's different landscapes. I mean, one of the nice things about the Cloverleaf is that it takes in very different landscapes. We've got the sort of dramatic West Coast side of things, which is not dissimilar to what you'll see on the North Coast 500. But then we also get down into the borders, which is a very different sort of rolling hills. equally dramatic and stunning. And then, you know, the East Coast, I think, is really underrated because some of the views that you get over the Firth, I mean, it's beautiful. It's not as mountainous, but there's, as a result, it's not quite as crowded, and there are just lovely coastal wines and hills and sort
But
of
you've got the
rolling
very Glen
countryside.
in there, haven't you?
Yes, exactly. The Glen,
So
which
that's
is a
probably the best road
legendary biking
ever. Yeah,
road.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And if you
You know,
go on,
I've hit that a few times with Bruce Green, sort of an extended NC. But I mean, it's fantastic that road.
yeah, no, that's an absolute biking classic, particularly for people around here. Like, I mean, I'll often do a run up to Braemar just for a short run. It's fantastic. But you go on from there, and there's you know, the old military road that the route also follows. I mean, various motoring writers have said, oh, that's just the best motoring road in Britain. It's amazing. So, you know, I'm trying to get all of these things in there, but then also the roads that you don't hear about, which in a car wouldn't be nearly so much fun. I mean, single track in a car is a bit of a pain, to be honest. But on a bike, where you're just that bit more maneuverable, you know, you're not having to stop and reverse and do all the rest of it. So, you know, it's fun. It's fun on a bike.
Yeah, so I know when I looked at the website, that's certainly that east is what appeals to me. That's just it's brilliant riding through there through the ski zones and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and heading up, yeah, the whole Braemar thing is lovely. And the other thing that I'm flagging up is the places where bikers like to stop, because obviously, you know, one of the nice things about being a motorcyclist is that you can talk to anybody, you know, stop, you have a blether, and, you know, if there's a bunch of bikers sitting somewhere having coffee, you're quite tempted to stop and just have a gab, you know. So I'm flagging up the places on the routes where people do stop. I mean, there's Braemar is a really obvious one. There's always bikers there. But then on the West Coast, Inverary is another place where bikers congregate. I mean, I was there towards the very end of the season, and it's a very little car park, and I looked around and there were like over 50 bikes in it when I dropped in one Saturday afternoon. So it's that's got that sort of nice convivial thing as well.
And the best Larne sausage in Scotland.
Very good.
I know that one well. But no, I think what appeals to me about this is that you've created a way of travelling that means you can do it without the pressure of the day-to-day pack up and take down. Because I think even if you're staying in a different hotel every night, you've still got that same unload your bike, take stuff up to the hotel room, unpack your toiletries, unpack your clothes, next morning repack. You know, whether it's a tent or a hotel, you've still got that hassle. Whereas
absolutely, yeah.
That first day, and then I'd say I've got 4 nights to relax. It therefore takes a strain out the riding day. You've not got to travel with your luggage. You don't have to worry about where you're going to stay that night or when you're going to get there, or the hassle of checking in.
Yes.
You just do the route at your leisure. You come back when you want, and your room's already set up, and you just have a nice relaxing dinner and do the same the next day. I think it's a really nice way of seeing a place without hassle of motorcycle travel.
It does also solve the problem that I think is on the increase, which is that a lot of B&Bs, for good reason, don't want to have people just for one night. And I think the COVID situation has actually made that worse for them, because they have to do so much cleaning between guests that for them it's like a one night stay is now a nightmare, because as well as, you know, changing sheets and everything, they're scrubbing everything down. So I think this season it will be quite difficult to find places where you can only stay for one night. You'll need to have at least 2. So this completely solves, you know, that hassle. And it just gives
that's a really good point actually, that, isn't it? I know when I've been trying to book a B&Bs down here for people, they're saying the same. They won't do a one-nighter.
Yes, yeah. Whereas a 5-nighter, they'll be delighted, because that's really good for them too. So, you know, I think everybody gets something from this. You know, the town gets something because people are coming and enjoying it for at least 5 nights. But also, you know, we as riders get the convenience of not having to pack up and just, you know, just be able to do nothing but ride.
Holiday, doesn't it? It's actually a motorcycle holiday rather than some of the drudgery of motorcycle touring.
Absolutely.
Especially if it's raining and, you know, you're having to do all the hassle of loading and unloading in the rain.
Packing a wet tent, yes.
Yeah, we've been there. Okay, no, that's really, really interesting. I'm glad we've been able to talk, because I think there's going to be a lot of riders who sat at home wanting to plan something for the summer. I mean, let's hope we can venture north.
Yes, fingers crossed. You know? I'm hopeful, actually. I am hopeful, maybe a bit later on in the summer, that at the very least, you know, we'll be able to do those sorts of activities. Maybe festivals and stuff won't be happening, but hopefully independent travel will be. Yeah,
you mentioned seasons. I say we're up to Scotland in September, and there's no issue with September, even October either.
Sometimes September has the best weather of the year. Actually, we tend to get really, really clear skies in September. So it's you know, everything has wonderful sharp edges. It's really beautiful. And if you do get a spell of really nice weather, it's unbeatable. I mean, autumn with the lochs and the trees changing color and everything, it's just glorious.
I think one
Really.
of my best rides in Scotland was I went up to the Scottish motorcycle show, and I think it was in February one year. And I took my GS 1200 up, and I think I was staying at my parents', which is an hour north of near Crieff. And it was a beautiful day. It was the day after the show, and I went up to Glencoe, up to the ski slopes. And actually, I had a day on the slopes. It was a fantastic combination of riding and riding and skiing. It was blue sky.
Yeah.
Not cold. I mean, it was such fantastic weather, and that was February.
Yes.
And I don't think and the roads are quiet now off season, which I think is as you say, Scotland is very busy in the densely packed height of peak season, isn't it?
It can get hectic, and weekends are the most hectic too. So if you can get up here out away from the weekends, I mean, one of the things that I'm going to do with accommodation is particularly to do packages, which will be Sunday night through Thursday night. So that you can get a nice deal from the B&B. You can come up, you get the best riding days, and then you still got the weekend nights free to go somewhere else, do something else.
Yeah. I think it's a great service to motorcycling that you've done, so I commend you on it. Really, I think. Well, if anyone else out there is sat there thinking they're sat in the middle of a really nice riding area, I think people could use what you set up as an inspiration to do something similar, because certainly domestic tourism and motorcycling is where it's going to be at. And, we've got some amazing riding roads on our doorstep. Whether you go east into Norfolk, I mean, there's great ride. There's a good riding everywhere if you look for it.
I was going to say, you must have some fantastic riding down where you are in the same way.
Yeah, same. I mean, that's essentially, if people want to come and ride my bikes, that's fine. But equally, if they just come and explore North Devon, because we've got a bit like you, we've got so many good roads on the doorstep. Probably not the same expanse. I mean, if we did 4 directions from where I am, you'd spend one day in the city.
Yes.
And one day back, you end up back in Exeter. But certainly so many places around that have got amazing riding. So I think if anybody's looking for inspiration on what to do this summer when things open up, go to the website. What's the website?
So it's cloverleaf.scot.
Oh, easy to find.
Yeah, easy to find. It's called the Crieff Cloverleaf. You'll find it on Google, and all the information that you need hopefully is there. And we're obviously adding more information all the time. There'll be an FAQ page eventually. I mean, this is very much a weekend project for me. I'm doing it partly just for the sheer fun of it. So stuff gets rolled out fairly slowly because I've got a proper job as well.
Yeah, but you've also got a bit of merchandising, T-shirts.
There's some funky T-shirt at the back there.
It's good to support projects like this with getting a T-shirt off you. So I think it's a great thing. So really nice talking to you at last about it, and hopefully see you up there soon.
Well, look forward to it, Nathan. Look forward to it.
Well, I'm going to see my parents at some point. So
there you go. You see.
Fingers crossed. All right, take it easy. Cheers,
you too.
Thanks.
Bye.